Along the northern reach of Ohio resides Lake Erie. It is the shallowest of the 5 Great Lakes of the Midwest and the most immediately reflective of pollutants and other echoes of human activity. Although I never drank from the naturally flowing waters of Northeast Ohio, I was grown from the city plumbing that was pumped into my childhood home. On my path of growing older, I was shown new relationships to water and how she could be drunk. I learned how the purity of place could be stored in springs, rivers, and moving waters, and how by bringing those waters into one's body, one could deepen a pulse to the weather, the seasons, the feel of location, and to Earth herself. It was in this place where I was first taught of the everlasting effect of human actions on the face of this earth. I was taught of history and of how man's technological advancement suppressed and destroyed the natural order while transcending the human species to a post-human future. I was taught how this is the fault of the Romi, the people at large, and their never-quenched greed. I was taught of the unrelenting momentum of our institutions and the universally selfish drive for survival. Almost all of me believed in these teachings, everything except for the small bit of doubt in me that led me outside, into forests, where I regularly went on walks in nature by myself. It was spending time in these woods of my hometown that gave me the eyes to see that the certainties I was taught about humankind were realities as well as options. I learned that we are nature, a nature that inhabits the aberration, our wisdom, tied to her, can untangle and choose beyond for greater realms of peace. That the human form can mold itself into a kind of sail where its decisions and ways of living are tied to earth and fed from her movements. Despite the pollutants that still embed the water, air, and earth of my hometown, I hope to find, when passing through, the roots of that which gives life to us while reciprocating narratives of health for us to wield. I went first to the Deep Springs Trout Club. While the spring is located on a private club for fishermen, the club and its members are very generous with the water that flows on their property and welcomes all visitors looking to fill from the spring on the land where they fish. The water at the club is simple and delicious. It is not a spring bubbling up from a great depth. Despite the Deep Springs name, there is still a lot of green in the water, which signals to me a tapped aquifer closer to the earth's shell. The water is buoyant and plasmic rather than crystalline and clear, and it tastes very sweet and alive. It is a fantastic drinking water and feels, like all springs do, just like the location from where it emerged. The Deep Springs water tastes plaintive, welcoming, recuperative, and green. I drove home in peace and with 2 full jugs of water. Once the jugs were empty, I drove 2 hours south to Seven Creek Spring. Like the Deep Springs Trout Club, the Seven Creek Spring in Steubenville is also maintained by community. But unlike Deep Springs, the Seven Creek Spring feels hardly maintained. There's a vending machine hut that sits on the side of an untended dirt road. A PVC pipe flows from the bottom of a stone called Big Rock into the hut, where it passes beneath the UV light and pumps out water for 50 cents a gallon. I was met by 2 wandering dogs who were friendly and needy, but no human came to meet me or to call the dogs back. I was by myself but did not feel alone. I was being recorded by multiple security cameras while I filled 2 5-gallon jugs. I passed abandoned homes, half-completed structures, and obscure works of architecture to arrive at the hut. And how was the water? There's the strong taste of residual minerals. It tastes like creek stone, and there's a shallow clarity to it. Although I do not believe it is coming from a deep aquifer, the taste is very clean, like a rain. The water is very fine, but it does not glow of health. In this video series, I will continue to explore springs in different areas of this country. I believe that by showing images and videos of the springs and landscapes, and by describing a found experience that occurred with the water, I may tempt you to look for the places around your own homes where fresh springs flow freely, and may even prompt you to ask this question: How can these springs be kept alive and flowing freely, away from exclusive, damming, and polluting entities? I thank you for your time, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode of On Finding Waters. May you flow freely from your own source and be in gratitude to her lifeblood, Gaia. Thank you for her time.